and I will be your moderator for today. A quick background on myself. I have been with SHI now for a little over 7 years. I started as an inside account executive, and then I moved into managing an inside sales team. And then about 2.5, 3 years into my SHI tenure, I made the career change to move into our Advanced Solutions group under Ryan Huffine to build out our services partner ecosystem. From there, I took on managing a team of services project managers and operations up until about a year ago when I came over to work for Ryan Sheehan as the ASG business manager. So I am primarily responsible for ASG programs, operations, as well as strategic advising and planning. I am very excited to be here with you all today and with these 3 incredible panelists that we have to hear more about their experiences in technology. So I know we have a lot of people on the call attending their first WISH event today, so I thought I would give you all a quick overview of what WISH is. So WISH stands for Women in SHI, and the mission of WISH is really to connect and to celebrate the diversity of women in technology. The goal of WISH is to hopefully provide different events and forums that inspire, empower, and encourage collaboration across SHI employees. WISH is really focused on fostering a workplace that is built on diversity, inclusion, and equality, and they provide several different resources as a part of this. Some of those include partner events, community engagement activities, and company-wide newsletters that range from topics including health and well-being to career advancement. And we are holding this WISH event specifically today to talk about how we can help break down barriers for women that may be interested in or considering technical or technical leadership roles. Technical pre-sales, SE, engineering organizations today tend to be heavily male-dominated, and that can be extremely intimidating for females that are considering these types of roles within these groups. I know it's something that we personally struggle with in our own Advanced Solutions group. So today we'll get to hear from 3 female leaders in our industry on their own personal experiences in hopes of helping break down some of those barriers for you all today. So with that, I would like to introduce our 3 panelists for today. So with us, we have Vanessa DeWalt, Senior Manager of Channel Pre-Sales at HPE. Vanessa has over 30 years of industry experience leading engineering and professional services groups at several IT industry leaders. We have Sharon Martin, West Commercial Senior Systems Engineering Manager at Cisco. Sharon is responsible for leading a 40-plus person engineering organization at Cisco West that covers 7 unique markets. Sharon has been with Cisco for 18 years, starting her career there as a global systems engineer. And last but not least, we have Nikki Jennings, Vice President of Channel and Cloud Sales Engineering and Services at Veeam. Nikki has a combined 20 years of experience in leadership roles, spanning sales engineering, product management and marketing, corporate development, and information technology. So quick note before we dive in and get to know our panelists a little bit more. There will be some time for Q&A at the end, so feel free to drop any questions that you have during the panel into the chat box, and we will plan to get through as many of those as we can in the time that we have, and we'll follow up offline with any that we may have missed. So with that, Nikki, Vanessa, and Sharon, thank you again so much for being here today. I think it would be great if we kicked it off with each of you walking us through your background and how you got started in the technology field. Vanessa, let's go ahead and start with you.
Okay, thank you very much, Abby. So hello, SHI. I'd be remiss if I just didn't thank SHI for giving us the opportunity to speak with you today because it is lunch time. You guys are a wonderful partner and it's greatly appreciated. So as Abby indicated, I'm Vanessa DeWalt. I've been in the technology field for 30 plus years in various pre-sales and post-sales field-facing positions, handling a lot of the Fortune 500, the Fortune 100 accounts. Over the last 8 years, I've been with HPE, leading various technical teams and covering our solutions and our services portfolio. And I've been lucky enough to achieve some record-breaking quarters while watching my teams grow professionally and watching my partner successes, hence SHI. So my mantra with my team and what I make sure that I'm doing on a daily basis is encouraging, empowering, engaging, and excelling. So I question myself on those 4 things every day and make sure that I'm putting a check by each one or several checks. So I got started in the field way back when I was a young child. I had my first computer, which was a TI-99. It was a 16-bit computer. and I began programming in BASIC. And I know a lot of you are probably out there laughing, but I'll tell you that some of the basic dialects are still in use today. So Microsoft Visual Basic, et cetera. So yes, it was way back when. And it became an obsession for me. And I quickly realized that my path could be something technical, unlike some of the other folks in my life that were educators and medical professionals. So that's my background.
Thank you, Vanessa. Sharon,
Absolutely.
you want to go next?
Sure. Was that to me? Sorry, there was a little background noise. Me next?
Yes. Yes.
Great. Thank you. And thank you, SHI. I think this is a wonderful conversation to have right now, especially in the midst of the world that we're living in. Coming together in this space to talk about moving diversity forward in engineering is an incredible conversation to be a part of right now. So thank you for the opportunity. My favorite part of doing business with SHI is just the cultural alignment between our two companies, and we're focused on the greater things together like this. That's extremely important to me. Unlike Vanessa, I actually didn't get started in technology until much later. I grew up in Colorado, and I felt the Silicon Valley pulling me. So I came to the Silicon Valley for college, but wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I was actually started as a international business major, and I just wasn't really inspired or motivated by a lot of the content. And I have a really memorable dinner with my father. My father was actually a technologist and had a career in technology for a very long time, including as a systems engineer. And he said, "Why don't you just take a programming class?" Like, "No, Dad, I'm not going to take a programming class." But I did. I ended up taking a programming class and falling in love with it. And it started me on a long career in technology. I actually started at Sun Microsystems doing some programming in C++ and Java. And I eventually found my way to Cisco in our own internal IT environment, maintaining some of our internal web applications before I moved into the field and became a systems engineer. Over the course of my SE, we call it Cisco SE or SA career, I've covered small customers, I've covered large customers, Morgan Stanley on Wall Street out of New York City, and some startups here in the Bay Area, which has been extremely exciting before I started moving into first line and now second line leadership. But it's been an extremely rewarding and challenging path for me, and look forward to talking about it a little bit more in the coming minutes.
Great. Thank you, Sharon.
Right. Awesome. Yeah. So first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity to share my experience and hear, Vanessa and Sharon's experience. I actually, when I was 14, I'm going to date myself a little bit here. When I was 14 years old, my aunt was a vice president for an educational film company. For those of you that remember the VHS films that you watched in science class and things like that. So I actually started working for her company during the summertime. My cousin was actually the IT director, and so I would join him. I learned about networks, infrastructure, databases, and that's really, even at that young age, that's when my passion for technology started to grow. I wanted to learn more. I was really hungry. So I ended up graduating high school early. I was in a small town in East Texas, and I moved to Austin, Texas, where I'm at right now, in 1998. And that's when I landed my first job in IT. I was basically like a help desk, tech consultant, but over a course of 8 years, I ended up actually becoming the IT director. And that journey has taken me to where I'm at today. I've served in various positions. I've led, as Kelly and Abby mentioned, I've led product management, product marketing. I've done corporate development, which is merger and acquisitions, all in technology. And so it's been quite the journey. I've had a lot of setbacks through the process, but that's certainly put me into the position I'm in today. So thank you again for having me, and I look forward to the conversation.
Of course. Thank you, Nikki. So each of you kind of touched on how you ended up in technology, but I'm curious, is there a time when each of you felt like you were going to pursue a career in technical leadership? And if so, when was that point? Sharon, I'll start with you.
Sure. This was actually a pretty eye-opening moment for me, and I wanted to share it all with you because I think it's incredibly important. I actually did not recognize it in myself. It took a trusted sponsor I had to tap me on the shoulder and talk to me about leadership and some of the qualities that he saw in me that I was doing that, translated into leadership vocabulary. So I'll always be very grateful for that person that helped, tap me on the shoulder, help me realize my leadership potential. But, personally, I needed a little nudge. I think some recognize it in themselves and some don't. And I was one that didn't. So I ask all of you to, turn the mirror on yourself and, ask yourself those questions or potentially nudge yourself. Or if you are mentoring or sponsoring someone, tap them on the shoulder and talk to them about leadership, because they might be someone that thinks that that's not available to them, or that it might not have even crossed their mind as an opportunity.
Absolutely. Vanessa, what about you?
So besides my basic programming, of which I absolutely loved, for me, when I was in college, like Sharon said, I would lead various technical projects. And one of my professors said, "You're a natural leader," which, by the way, I don't think there's any mystique in being a leader. Either you want to do it or you don't. So I don't think you're born a leader. That's my personal opinion. But my professor told me, "Hey, I'm giving you all these projects. You're leading a couple of team members in your group. And by the way, some of them tended to not carry their weight. And even though they didn't carry their weight, I was more than happy to help them and sort of prod them along so that we could get our project in and get a good grade on it." So for me, again, I knew technology was something that I loved. And leadership came along the way when I was in college, when I was in grade school. I got in trouble for talking too much. And my father went to school and said, she doesn't want to be a follower. She wants to be a leader. And the teacher said, "That's great, but she needs to be quiet when I'm trying to talk." And so, I don't know, I guess a long time ago, I realized I wanted to be a leader, but for sure when I was in college and I had the opportunity to help others, which is something I relish, just helping other people grow. So that's when it happened for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, both of you mentioned having some type of leader or mentor. So I feel like it's really important for leaders or mentors on the call to know that, if you see someone who you feel like has leadership potential, to make sure that you encourage them and show them the path. Nikki, what about you?
Yeah, so in 2008, well, actually, let me back up. Everyone just says I'm bossy. So I kind of knew I had that in me. So in 2008, I decided to pivot in my career. I loved IT. I was, like I said, an IT director. I did systems administration. I was a network engineer. Loved the hands-on, loved the individual contributor role. But I decided to make a pivot, and I joined a company called SolarWinds. They do infrastructure monitoring. They're here in Austin. And the company at the time was pre-IPO, their first IPO, and it was hyper growth. So when I joined as a senior SE, there were only 5 SEs globally. The company was about 250 employees. They were growing in double digits, and there was just a ton of opportunity. I'm opportunistic, and so that's when I really kind of looked at the landscape and said, okay, this team needs a leader. I want to take on more. I want to do more. And so I just put myself out there, and I ended up managing the global pre-sales organization actually for the majority of my career at SolarWinds. So that's kind of how it started, and I never looked back.
I love that. And do you feel like there are any other steps you've taken in your career path that have really set you up for these leadership roles and where you are today?
Well, I think, Vanessa and Sharon, touched upon it. Having a mentor is so critical. Someone that can guide you professionally, personally, as you're, experiencing different challenges in life. There was a time when I was a single parent and I was trying to manage, my career, and just having someone to talk to me about, okay, these are the things that you should focus on. So I think that is just incredibly important. And over time, I've become a mentor myself to help guide and lead those that, either want to stay in an IC role or potentially move into a leadership position.
Yeah, I know mentorship has been incredibly helpful for me as well. Vanessa, what advice do you feel like you could offer attendees here today who might be intimidated by the prospect of taking on a leadership role?
Well, what I would say is everybody's the CEO of their own life. So why not lead at work if that's something you want to do? And if you're not sure if you want to be a leader, just start out by becoming that mentor we've been speaking of, and and or take on a special project that heightens your visibility as a leader. I believe there are many paths to the top: up, sideways, down. Yes, you can move down and then move sideways or up, and find the mentors along that path. Your path does not always have to be the same as someone else's in terms of, what I'm sharing with you, Nikki sharing with you, and Sharon's sharing with you. So there are multiple routes that you can take to be a leader. As you can tell from listening to us, we love being leaders. It's very, very fulfilling. But I'd be the first to say it's not for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that. Start with a mentor, take on a special project.
Yes.
Sharon, a question for you. So you've mentioned that you are passionate about getting the best diverse talent into Cisco. How do you feel like diversity fits into your organization today, and how do you participate in recruiting programs, communications, things that really align to that?
Sure. So, getting diversity into engineering is a very large, complex problem that starts when, we're little girls or little people. So, it's definitely gnarly. One way that I have tackled it is just starting small. So having a goal. The first goal I had for my organization was to get a woman on every engineering team. And it took 2 years, but we did do that. So super happy about that. I've now taken that goal one step further, and there's a concept called the only, which means that, if you're in a meeting room with your common group of peers, that if you look around and no one looks like you, this doesn't have to be women, this can, be sexual orientation or ethnicity as well. But my next goal is to eliminate this phenomenon of the only. So, if a person is looking around the room and they're the only person that looks like themselves, I want to eliminate that. So that's currently my goal now. I think, it starts with a mindset of constantly innovating your hiring process and how you're showing up to candidates. I'll share one story. One of my managers, she happens to be a woman. Her name's Julie. She's out of Phoenix. She had started tweaking our job descriptions for engineering and how they were showing up in our external databases, our external environments. And she just took a look at the language and said, if I was a woman, would I respond to this? And by tweaking a few different things, she actually received an applicant that was a woman that applied for the role and ultimately ended up getting it. So, there's small things we can do along the way, and we just have to continue innovating and looking for different ways. I also coach my managers very heavily on how they are showing up to every single candidate. And are they selling themselves as a manager, as someone everyone would want to work for, not just this type of person or this gender or if this ethnicity. We spend a lot of time role playing and making sure that they're able to connect with every candidate in a very authentic way where the candidate really feels seen. And that is a constant process as well, but it's definitely, something I'm continuing to stay focused on, and we're finding some small wins, like the story I shared with Julie.
Yeah, I love those small steps. We, as ASG, our leadership team meets every single week, and we look at those little things that we can do to change the process and start making those steps toward diversifying more. I love that. So a big one right now, question for any of you: how do you currently balance the demand of your role with your family responsibilities, especially during this shift to work from home time? I know for me personally, I have 2 small children, and it's definitely a struggle. So I would love to hear from some of you on what it's been like.
Yeah, so I'll go. I have 2 kids, 2 girls, one that's in 8th grade and one that's going to be in 4th grade. But yes, with the transition to working from home, going virtual, the lines are definitely blurring between your work and life balance, and it's very difficult. And what I always advise, even prior to the life that we have now, is being very diligent about your schedule, being very diligent about planning and putting in boundaries to say, okay, today at 7 o'clock, 5 o'clock, whatever it is, I'm going to stop working. I'm going to put my phone down. I'm going to focus on my family. And I think that is really key to creating that separation between work and life. But you have to be very organized and diligent with your schedule. I think that's critical.
I could not agree more.
And so for me, I make a concerted effort to spend quality time with the family. All of our kids are adults right now, but we spend quality time with them on Saturdays. And then everybody knows during the week from 7 to 10 o'clock, I turn work off. In terms of working from home, for me, it's better than working from a hotel because we travel a lot here in pre-sales. So I figure as long as I have the tools that allow me to be effective and productive, I can't narrow the difference from in between home and office, but I clearly have the utmost of respect for individuals that have small kids at home because that can make it a little bit tougher.
I'll offer one final perspective, just kind of in life, pre-COVID and family and, moving into leadership as kind of a lifelong balance. It took a while for me to become comfortable with the fact that it's okay for careers to go through seasons, and it's okay to sometimes choose family over career. And it took me a while to come to that. But you might see years in your career where you're developing exponentially or receiving promotions or leading larger teams, and a personal event might happen, like if you choose to get married to a partner or if you choose to start a family, where that might become the focus. I had a 2-year-old 2 years ago, so I have one child who's 2, and I personally had to turn down 2 promotions at Cisco because I made the decision that I needed to focus on being a mom, and that's okay. And that's not going to be everybody's answer, but I had to come to the conclusion that my career might be in a season right now where I'm going to continue to be great at my job and lead my organization effectively, and I'm going to learn how to be a great mom. And there will be promotions down the road. So there's no right answer. I think it's just knowing you and being okay with the concept that careers can move very quickly for periods of time, and they might slow down for periods of time, and just really view it as a long game.
Yeah, I agree. You really have to look internally and see what's best for you based on the opportunity. And I like the point that Nikki and Vanessa brought up about setting boundaries. At X time, I turn it off, and being really diligent and organized to make sure you're able to do that. So I want to go ahead and shift into our theme for today of breaking down barriers for women interested in pursuing technical careers. So Sharon, I'll start with you. As we touched on in the beginning, going into a technical role or a technical leadership role can often be somewhat daunting for women. So how do you feel like we could potentially break down some of these barriers and help women approach these roles with confidence?
So I think, everybody plays a role, no matter your gender or what you look like. Everybody plays a role in breaking down barriers for this career to be available to everyone. So I think everyone on this call absolutely plays a role, whether you're man or woman or alien or whatever. So that's one thing is, ask yourself, how am I playing a role to help break down these barriers? It's not just on women. Women, what I challenge you to do is have a mindset shift, because I think it can be very easy to feel intimidated. You might feel like you're at a little bit of a disability. And I challenge you to consciously shift your mindset from disability to one of power. Instead of, I am the only woman in this room, what would it look like if you said, I get to be the only woman in this room? And understanding the power and that your point of view needs to be represented. I'll share 3 things I think that if you are able to make this shift, what's in it for you, your team, and your company. One, I think as a woman, one of the powerful things that you have is I found that customers can be much more comfortable sharing information with women. I've also observed that situations of conflict, whether it's with a partner, a supplier, a peer, conflict situations tend to end more with empathy and understanding instead of resentment in some cases. And thirdly, problem solving or getting to the root of an issue tends to happen more quickly when more diversity is involved, not necessarily just women, but any kind of diversity. So, find power in these things and, know your strengths and kind of silence that disability voice that might be in your head, and instead start to feed your power voice and understand your strengths of what you bring to the table as a woman.
I love that. Turn your disability into one of power. That's great. Nikki and Vanessa, a question for you both. Vanessa, we'll start with you. From a hiring perspective, what are some ways that you try to diversify your organization today?
Absolutely. So, same with Sharon, you start with diversity at the top of the day, day one, right? You look around and you see where you can bring people into the organization. And for me, diversity is the society that surrounds you. So that could be age, that could be religion, that could be education. I have people on my team that are chief technologists that have sociology backgrounds, et cetera. But at the end of the day, they had the skills and the knowledge that I needed to move the market forward and generate revenue for us. So I hired them, and they've turned out to be the right hire. So we start day one. I target various industries and institutions to broaden my reach of candidates. So that could be going to various colleges, that could be going to places where a diverse group of candidates congregate. So there are multiple ways to diversify the organizations. And quite frankly, what I'm seeing is there are a lot of women and individuals that fall into that diverse category that are seeking technical positions simply because they realize that technology is our future. But it is very, very important to make sure that you have a diverse organization. To Sharon's point, when you have a diverse organization, things just meld. In sales, it's often asked, where are some of the other people in the organization that have the skill sets that I feel comfortable are going to be around once the sale is solidified, right? Because once the sale is consummated, they want to make sure that the ROI that you promised comes to fruition. And sometimes they're looking for females and other diverse individuals to make that commitment and follow through. For whatever reason, they just feel comfortable with it. And if that's what's required, then that's what we'll do.
For sure. Yeah, that's something that we've been doing in ASU with our recruiting team as well, is looking at different diverse LinkedIn groups, women in technology groups, minority in technology groups, and really proactively reaching out to members of those to see how we can continue to diversify our candidate pool. Nikki, what about you?
Yeah, so Sharon's much farther ahead than I am in terms of adding more females to my team. I'm certainly working on it, and it's a process to kind of change that mindset. But I do agree the tone starts at the top, and it has to filter all the way through the organization. So one thing at Veeam that I noticed with my leaders, who are all male, they had a specific profile. Of course, we have technical profiles and titles and things like that, but they would have very specific things they were looking for. And I felt that eliminated other folks from potentially having an opportunity to have a conversation. So we talk about, internal moves or external. And so what I've asked them to do is to kind of wipe that out and talk to the candidates that have a technical aptitude. They may not have 10 or 15 years of pre-sales or technical experience, but they have a passion, they're hungry, and to give them an opportunity to have a conversation. It's a process. It's definitely a process, but I think you have to be very open-minded about, the things that you're looking for.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like you have to be very conscious of that, and that's really great advice for the hiring managers on the call here today. So thank you, Nikki. So question for the group, if you had to pick one quality or one attribute for how you got to where you are today, what would that be? Vanessa, we'll start with you.
I have two, but I'll give you one. So I'd say it's confidence and integrity, but I'll focus on confidence because with confidence, you've won before you've even started. And to me, confidence is being able to walk into a room and I feel like you don't have to compare yourself to everybody else, right? I notice some folks that are confident and very extroverted, and not to knock them because I'm both, but it isn't walking into a room with your nose in the air and thinking you're better than everybody else. Like I said, it's walking into the room and knowing that you don't have to compare yourself to anybody else in the first place. So confidence for sure, and integrity. If you don't have integrity, people don't trust you. And you have to be able to acknowledge your mistakes and do what's right, even when it impacts the bottom line.
Yeah, I love that. Sharon, what about you?
Mine's pretty simple, actually. Mine is optimism. I think, if you have every situation with an optimistic viewpoint, You can always see a silver lining. You can always fail forward. You can always learn. And that is something that's helped me move through many challenging situations and also move into leadership, is just really approaching every situation authentically with a general spirit of optimism. Even network outage situations, if approached with optimism, good can come out of it. So that's definitely a strength that I've leaned on the last 20 or so years.
Yeah, we talk a lot about internally the only two things you can change are attitude and effort, and I feel like optimism ties right into that.
Yeah.
Nikki, what about you?
Yeah, I have two as well, but the first one I would say, get out of your comfort zone. You have to challenge yourself. And, we talked about, folks that want to get into technical positions but don't feel like they have the background. You have to want and have that desire to move into something different. And sometimes what we do every day is comfortable, and you have to be willing to say, okay, I don't have, 10 years plus years experience, but I'm going to try something different. And even if you fail, that's okay. We have to be willing and accepting of failure. It makes us stronger. The second thing is your ability to adapt to change. Companies and the economics of the market, everything is going to change. I think we're seeing that definitely today with COVID. And you've got to be willing to adapt to that change, navigate it, overcome those challenges, and it actually ties in well to the optimism, and have an attitude of, okay, this didn't go well, it's not going well, but how can I overcome it?
Absolutely. And Nikki, maybe diving in a little bit further, can you maybe talk about a time where something didn't go well and you did have to adapt, or it didn't go according to plan, and what that looked like?
I actually have tons of them, but I'll tell you one that resonates. So I went to the CEO at a former company, and I wanted to take over more responsibility. I had my organization, and I felt like, okay, I'm ready to take on a new role or additional roles, and I was told no. I was pretty upset about it because I felt like I was qualified to do it. So I was speaking with my mentor, and he said, why do you want to take on more responsibility when your house isn't built? And I was, what does that mean exactly? What he meant was, my house wasn't ready for me to leave that house because my line of business, there was opportunity to make improvements, and I wasn't done with that yet. Once your house is built, once things are going really, really well, then you're ready for potentially the next challenge. And so that was a setback, but kind of looking at the landscape, I now reflect on it and go, you're right, I need to fix what I have in front of me. And then once that's done, take on the next challenge.
Yeah, I love that. That's super important. All right, so another question for the group, and Nikki, we'll start with you on this one. What motivates you, and what is your why for being here?
What motivates me is, well, what inspires me, and I know the audience is going to go, okay, yeah. What inspires me is that I look at your CEO and all the things that she's done to be where she is today. And that motivates me, that inspires me. The opportunity that technology and companies offer, because it changes so much. Those are the things that I think about, and having those goals and looking at other leaders, female leaders, strong leaders that are on boards now, they're in senior executive level positions. That is something that drives me to want to do more, and that's why I'm here.
That's great. Sharon, what about you?
That's amazing. Great response, Nikki. So my why runs kind of deep. I actually came from a family of pretty humble beginnings, pretty, poor beginnings. I myself is the first person in my family to become college educated. So, education means a lot to me. And, I feel just a sense, a bit of, positive obligation back to, generations before me, where every generation got just a little bit better. And, I want to bring that forward too, and, make my parents proud and generations proud for the work that they put in. And education and just moving forward and moving generations forward is something I'm really passionate about. And hopefully my daughter will be CEO of a company one day, but that's really what, sparks joy in me when I get up every day, is just, overcoming some generations before me and just moving my family forward.
I love that. That is very inspiring. Thank you, Sharon. Vanessa, what about you?
Yes, my contribution is to leave this world a better place than I found it. I mentioned earlier that I really take a lot of pride in helping individuals that, for whatever reason, haven't been given their stripes. And it just makes me feel really good because somebody helped me along the way and I want to help someone else. And it's all about giving someone the opportunity. Some people don't know how to really communicate and express themselves. And I seek those individuals out, especially when they have varied talents and I know what they're capable of. And I watch them flourish just as a result of us having some conversations, because sometimes people want to be seen and they don't know how to move forward and get seen. So that's my why, to help somebody else and leave this world a better place than I found it. Some folks are really, really selfish and it's like, I got this and I don't care about everybody else. I'm completely the opposite.
Yeah, and you mentioned you had someone there to help you, and I feel like we've kind of gone back and forth talking about the importance of mentorship, and it's something that's also really important to Wish. And I'm curious, based on all of your collective experience, what has mentorship looked like for you over the years? Vanessa, question for you. So in the early stages of your career, did you have a mentor, someone specific that you looked up to?
I did. So my biggest mentor is my mother. She's definitely a very, very intelligent lady and tells an enormous amount of experience. And she impressed upon me the importance of a strong work ethic. And in addition, clearly I've had some mentors that were executives in my career, and I picked up some along the way with Whitty and NASB. So those are various organizations for leaders and people with technical backgrounds. So definitely my biggest mentor in my life has been my mother.
That's great. Sharon, what about you?
I think, I've learned a lot about mentorship over the years. I think, one thing is that I want to talk a little bit about how I approach a mentorship, whether I'm on the mentee side or the mentor side, and some things that I think are important. I think first, it's really important to recognize that, there does need to be some kind of chemistry between, you and the mentor. Chemistry definitely matters. You need to, really connect on this kind of, human level for the mentorship to really move forward. And I think it's important in the beginning to, agree on, some type of rules of engagement. How I usually coach my team to do this is, set up a series of 6. So there's a clear, beginning, middle, and end of a mentorship. And, you have an ending point to, if you've come to the end of the runway of a mentorship, that gives you a logical way to pivot and put a bow on the mentorship with that person and then move on. Or if things are, continuing to be very successful for both sides of the mentorship, you can also extend it back beyond that. So I think a series is a good way to start, so you can find your chemistry so that both mentee and mentor can add value back to each other. And, if you've reached the end of the series after 6 and you've reached the runway with the mentorship, it's a really nice way to pivot and potentially turn that person from a mentor to a sponsor and go try and learn and develop with someone else. I also think a lot of the onus of the mentorship should be put on the mentee. I think they should own the agenda. I think they should lead the meeting. And I think they really need to look for ways to add value back to your mentor. And I think the conversation is also very important to evolve a mentorship into a sponsor. And there's a distinct difference. And a sponsor is someone who will stick their neck out for you when you are not in the room, when things like raises or promotions or development are being discussed. And I think it's important to build a body of mentors, and it's important to build a body of sponsors who are advocating for you on your behalf when you're not in the room. And mentorships are a logical way to, build that sponsorship.
Yeah, I like both the role of the mentor and the sponsor. And I do think a lot of times mentorship can be very natural and very fluid, but it is important to have some type of structure to look at the beginning, the middle, and end, and how that person progresses over time based on your mentorship. So that's great. Nikki and Vanessa, what about you both? Is there anyone today that you mentor? And if so, what does that mentorship look like today?
Yeah, I just want to touch on one thing. Yes, I am mentoring someone today. We have a program at Beam that's very well structured, very well supported, and there's a lot of investment in it. But not every company has that. And so what I would encourage you to do is think about someone in your life, whether that's in the company you're at or another company, and think about, do they inspire you? Do they motivate you? And is it someone that can help you get to where you want to be? And don't be afraid to reach out and ask them, hey, could you spend some time with me? It is very important when you do that to have some things in mind, specifically your goals that you want to accomplish from that person. So again, I really encourage everyone, if you're not in a program, just look at someone that inspires you and have a conversation with them. So it's just, there's a ton of opportunity out there. But we do have Women in Green at Beam. And last year I mentored a manager in Bucharest and I learned a lot. I always take an approach that it's a partnership. I'm not going to have all the answers. I'm a leader, but I'm not going to have the answer to everything. It's more of guidance and sharing information, sharing stories. Her father actually passed away throughout the process. And so she had a lot of challenges, personal challenges on how to get back into work. And so we had a lot of personal questions. It wasn't just about work related things per se. And so it's been very eye-opening for me. And now this year she started being a mentor herself. So it was very rewarding.
Oh, that's nice.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I feel like that's good advice. It doesn't just have to be professional. It can be both personal and professional. Vanessa, what about you?
So I like to think that I'm still mentoring my adult children, even though they probably differ since they're adults. And I also mentor some STEM students. And to me, mentoring is listening and remaining positive, because it's not just about where they're trying to go in life, it's where they've been. And what I find is just having someone that they can talk to and trust makes a big difference. As a matter of fact, I would even go to the extent of saying sometimes the conversations are me just listening, and by the time they're done talking, they figured out what they want to do next, or they feel better. So it's not me, it's them. And they're just, they're at a crossroad in their life and they just need someone to help them. And again, that's a beautiful thing.
Yep, I would say that's very important. Nikki and Sharon, question for you both. We talked about how to break down barriers for women considering technical roles. Why do you think it's important to encourage these women to seek roles in engineering and technology? Sharon, we'll start with you.
Sure. So, for me, it's a little bit less about technical acumen. Actually, I think, technical acumen is, baseline to be great in the role. Our field is rapidly evolving, and it seems like the more years that go by, the quicker our field changes. And what I love about positions in engineering and technology is that it builds skill sets that are very translatable to future roles and future skill sets that we might not even know exist yet. So I want to call out 3 specific skills that I think careers in engineering and technology build that are extremely translatable and very important for roles down the road that we don't even know exist yet because of the space that we're in. One of these is the ability to critically think and critically think on your feet. These roles will absolutely teach you how to do that, especially if you are customer facing. The second is complex problem solving skills. And the third is the ability to communicate extremely complex subjects at any level of an organization. So executive communication of complex topics, all the way down to potentially network operator, network engineer type discussions. So it allows you to develop a range of communication skills. And I think those are the 3 most important skills that these types of careers help you develop to make sure that you are very marketable and very ready for careers of the future.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think often we look at the specific technical expertise instead of looking high level at some of the skills that they attain that really can be translatable across any market. Yeah. That's great. Wonderful. So one last question for the group to wrap things up. What is one piece of advice that each of you would give to the audience here today? Nikki, I'll start with you.
I think I touched on it earlier. I would just say that be open-minded, right? Always be a leader in any position that you're in to help each other, have the ability to listen and always, try to refrain from talking over and encourage people and build a support system within your organization to have conversations to help build each other up.
Love that. Be open-minded. Vanessa, what about you?
Probably believe in yourself. I mean, we're talking about women just being comfortable with taking their next move, whatever that entails. Believe in yourself and know your strengths and how you can learn and lean in, because everybody has strengths. So lean in on your strengths and figure out how you become more effective with your strengths, because those are things that are in your wheelhouse. And you also have to know where your weaknesses are and fill those gaps to be well-rounded. So I wish everybody the best on this call. And I'd say shoot me a note on LinkedIn and let me know what your next career move has been as a result of listening to us or not, so that I can congratulate you, because I can tell this is a fantastic group of individuals. And hopefully all of everything that we've discussed resonates with you and you can find a place to leverage some of the pointers that we've shared.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. What about you, Sharon?
Well, mine is very simple and very focused. This is for everybody on the call. You can do hard things, and it's that simple.
It's true.
I could not agree more. That's when you grow. Okay, thank you all so much for your time. I'm so appreciative of you taking the time to talk through your experiences and how you've managed to break down your own barriers into these technical roles as females. And with that, so for the audience, before we dive into Q&A, we wanted to leave you all with a call to action and a what comes next. So first, ask yourself, what is one new thing that you learned on the call, on the panel, that you can start to apply today? And if any of you are interested in continuing the discussion that we had today and getting to spend some more time with our panelists, please feel free to reach out to myself or to Kelly Brogdon to hear more about some of the smaller follow-up sessions that we'll be hosting here in the near future. And if this discussion today piqued anyone's interest on what a role or a career in ASG or ESG would look like, feel free to reach out to myself and I'm happy to connect you with the right folks. And lastly, our three wonderful panelists have all volunteered their contact information here at the bottom of the slide. So if any of you are interested in scheduling some one-on-one time with either Sharon, Nikki, or Vanessa, they would be glad to take some time to talk more with you individually offline.
Hey, real quick,
and with that, we will dive
in my email address, it's actually Shamarti, so Shamarti. It happens all the time because my nickname is Shmarty, so you don't think to put the A in there, but it's Shamarti.
Got it.
Wonderful. We will send out a slide after this with your correct email. Sorry about that, Sharon.
No worries. Happens all the time.
All right. So we've got about 11 minutes here. We'll take a few questions from the audience. So the first one I see from Lindsay is, this one is for you, Sharon. What kinds of tweaks did you make to your job description to help make it more welcoming to women?
That's a great question. I think the biggest things we changed, and I don't want to say that I don't want like any negativity to come out of this or anything. This is all about casting an extremely wide net to get anybody interested in the role and let everyone who saw this job description think this is accessible to me. We actually took off certifications required and years of experience needed. And we also softened the language a little bit. These job descriptions can sound like very textbook dictionary. I don't even want to read them sometimes. I'm like, oh man, I'm getting bored reading this job description. So we tried to make it fun and exciting, put some of the personality of the region or the team into it, some of the fun things that they do, some more fun things about the company, or more purposeful things about Cisco, not like we saw a lot of routers and switches, but more things like, recently, we've donated this much to the World Health Organization. This is how we're working with the Ford Foundation to make sure we are having any opinion on what is happening in our country right now with racism. So, really purposeful statements that, expand beyond just the requirements to be an engineer at Cisco, but, people are attracted to purpose. So we also tried to instill, some purpose in the words that we were using in the job descriptions as well. But I'd probably summarize those three things as knocking certifications completely off, knocking off years of experience, and playing with the language to be a little bit more purposeful. Not that I don't think IP networking is purposeful, but more purposeful in, you know, the whole state of the world that we're in right now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's interesting how you tweak a few words and it makes a huge difference on how that can be read by certain people.
Yeah.
Okay, so question for the group. In your experience, how do you find a formal or informal mentor, and how can you become one?
Yeah, I think that, again, just focus on someone that inspires you, that motivates you, that you look at and you're like, man, that person is a badass and I want to be just like them. And have a conversation, especially leadership is about willingness to coach and help others. And so, you know, again, I encourage you to pick up the phone or send an email and just say, hey, would you mind having a conversation? Here are the top 3 things that I want to do. And again, be prepared before you go into that conversation to have those goals identified and what you want to work on and the time frame that you want to accomplish it.
Yes, ditto. You know, if you want to be a mentor, just look around. You can figure out who really is interested in moving their career forward or having difficulty with something. Again, it could be something in their life or something that they're working on, and offer to help them. So that's the easiest way to mentor someone else. And I second what Nikki said. I always sought out the individuals in the organizations that were the SMEs, the subject matter experts, no matter what the subject was. And if I felt as though that was an area that I needed to improve upon, then I quickly connected at the hip with that individual to see what he or she could share with me and what I could provide for them, because it is a two-way street, right? Sometimes people say, if I do something for you, please do something for me. Clearly that doesn't mean anything unethical, but you know, we all have strengths and we can help somebody just like they can help us.
Yep, I could not agree more. Sharon, what about you?
You know, I think have a conversation with your manager about a mentorship. Make sure you really understand and come to consensus with your manager on where you would like to develop and the type of skills to develop, so that you are, you know, matched with an appropriate mentor. And I think once you start to engage in those mentorships, it's on the mentee to make sure they go well. And if you do that, your mentor network will naturally start to expand, because as you have mentors and establish a great first impression in relationship with them, that mentor will then open up other doors for you. So that's why it's critical to have a good structured plan around your mentorship, so that you're creating great first impressions that will continue to open doors down the road for you on mentorship. And take every opportunity like this to start a conversation with people. There are tremendous tools out there, even in the world of COVID, to have someone spend time with you, developing you.
For sure. So I think takeaways for the audience is, if you don't know, you know, maybe start with your manager, or look at people in the organization today who are doing their job very well as a starting point. All right, and I think this is the last question that we have. So have any of you on the panel ever dealt with imposter syndrome? And if so, how were you able to overcome it?
Imposter syndrome?
I have done a lot of work with this, so I'll address it. Vanessa, if you don't know what it is, you are lucky.
I think I know what it is. I'm almost certain I know what it is. So,
since your trait is confidence, you probably naturally have the positive, confident Vanessa on your shoulder. But a lot of us have a louder voice on the other shoulder that, you know, tends to lean into the language of, you know, you can't do this, you're not qualified for this, you shouldn't be in this role. People don't think you should be in this role. So I think, you know, it's interesting. It shows up in, it's not a women thing, you know, imposter syndrome shows up in men and women in all levels of executives, even in well-known, you know, CEOs that we all might see around the industry. The first thing to do is just acknowledge it, and that it's appearing in you, and have a good practice and habits for how to silence the imposter, and have a good mantra to get the other voice in your head, or the angel on your shoulder, having a louder voice than the imposter voice. Vanessa probably has some really good ideas on how to make sure the person on your shoulder that's positive has a very loud voice. But some of us have to, be very diligent in working on, internal confidence building and internal "I deserve to be here" self-talk. So it kind of comes down to that type of stuff. And self-talk is probably something for all of you, men and women, to, explore as well, because that's really sort of the root of imposter syndrome. Is how are you talking, to yourself, the voice in your head? Is it the imposter voice, or is it the real, positive, confident voice that, comes out like with Vanessa? But I've definitely had to do a lot of work on it.
And I would just add I was just going to add one thing, because I talked about positions I've served in, formally, merger acquisitions. I don't have a finance background. When I took over corporate development, there was, a lot of lack of confidence. Can I do this position? Others that probably viewed me and said, can she do the position? And I think the biggest thing for me was to not pretend that I knew everything, to ask questions as I was looking at financial models. What does this mean? And to not be afraid to sound like you're stupid. You're not. Asking questions is really important, especially if you're in a leadership position. You don't want to act like you know everything. No one does. And I think, just from that perspective, always ask questions. Don't be afraid to.
That's right. And with Google and everything else there in YouTube, trust me, you may not know it at the moment, but either your mentor can help you, someone on your team can help you, or you leverage those other mechanisms. You'll figure it out.
Yep, absolutely. And Vanessa, we did get one more question for you. You had mentioned some groups that the group can tap into for additional resources. Yes. Can you restate those for the audience?
Yes. So it's called WITI, W-I-T-I, and that stands for Women in Technology International. So that's WITI. That's one, and there is a fee to join WITI. And the other that I referenced, the other organization that I referenced was, I believe, NSBE, which is the National Society of Black Engineers, NSBE.
Wonderful, thank you. And Nikki or Sharon, did you also have any additional resources that you would like to share or suggest to the group?
Yeah, what I can do is there's a local chapter here in Austin. For those of you that are here in Austin, it's called Women in Technology. They do virtual networking events, sponsorships, and things like that. So Abby, I'll send you the information, but it's free to get into. So yeah, I encourage that.
Multiple.
Wonderful. We can send that out with a follow-up.
Just Google's your friend. There's multiple Facebook groups out there that you might find connection with. There's definitely a lot out there. So, one piece is just start looking for it, because there are a lot of conversations out there happening that you can align with. And I think the first step is looking for it yourself, and you'll find your own path and finding these communities that you jive with and that are helping move you forward.
Agreed. There's so much out there. You just have to start looking.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, ladies, so much again for your time today. Looking forward to speaking again soon, Nikki, Sharon, and Vanessa. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Best of luck, everyone.
Thank you all. Stay safe.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.